Good morning. It's 2:10 a.m. Sunday morning. Yeah. Good morning. It's time for a guitar lesson. You got to get up early. The early bird gets the worm, you know, that kind of thing. Anyways, I'm the riff ninja. I don't even want to be the riff ninja, but I'm the riff ninja. They voted me as the riff ninja. Okay, so my shtick is my name's Colin Daniel. I'm the Riff Ninja. You can check me out at riffninja.com. Hey, that was pretty good. That almost sounded pro. Okay, and I won't mention anything about anything else except for beer and pizza. All right. Okay, this is a lesson that nobody wants to touch. It's a strumming lesson. Ooh. Well, if you're a beginner and you're struggling with your strumming, there's a whole bunch of things that attribute to your either being able to strum well or not. One is one of these little babies here, pick. And one thing I notice about beginners is they seem to go for a really thin pick. And that's okay if you're strumming an acoustic and you want a really nice, smooth sounding, soft sounding strum. But since I like to pick my guitar and pick bass notes, I use a much thicker pick. This pick's like over 1 mil. It's like 1.3 mil or whatever. It's fairly thick. This part of it is the way you hold the pick. Part of it is how you feel the strings. Depends on your guitar. If your guitar is hard to play, it probably needs to be set up, and you might want to think about that too. We'll talk about that in another lesson. But for the sake of the strum, I wouldn't use a thin pick myself, like I said, because I want to pick some single notes, and the thin pick's really floppy and soft, and I don't have as much control on it. A thick pick, you have more control by the amount of pressure that you use on your thumb and your first finger on the right hand when you're holding the pick. I kind of hold it like that. See, it depends. There is no right or wrong way to hold a pick. That has something to do with your strum too. Usually when I'm strumming and I want a really smooth strum, I'll hold the pick more like that. You know, and the pick sits, and I sit my pick on an angle, a 45 to the 45 degree angle to the strings. And again, it depends on what guitar I'm playing. But here's the issue. The issue is that most beginners I see, like say they're playing, let's take a C chord, that's a good example. With a beginner, they usually hit the top end of that C chord, like they'll hit this E bass, and they're not muting it, and they're doing this. And they're getting this thrashing noise out of it because they're hitting the top of the strings. So one of the first things you can do to improve your strum is be aware of the notes that belong in the chord. And don't strum any more than the notes that belong in the chord. Again, for example, this C chord here, you should not be strumming that low E. You should be strumming from the 5th string on. And your chord has to be clear or it won't sound good. Now you notice when I let my pick go, I let the pick kind of drag across the strings and then coming back up. You can actually practice that. You can sit here and you don't want to pick it, you just want to drag your pick across the strings. Like you're brushing it with a brush. Now the more relaxed that you, like with my thick pick, I have to hold it fairly relaxed to get a smooth strum out of it. So if you checked out my 6 most important chords for a guitar, that lesson, you'll discover that G, C, and D are really important chords. And I'm just going to take those as an example to show you what I would do to strum it. If you're a beginner, you want to learn what I call a straight 8th strum. It's an 8th note strum. So depending on the speed of the music that you're playing, will depend on how fast or slow that 8th note strum is. Like I'd pick a moderate, meaning a medium tempo, which would be like around 100 or 120 beats per minute. So it'd be around 2 beats per second, you know, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, somewhere in there. Like, it's just rough, right? But you want to find a nice tempo. You could use the metronome to do this too. I won't bother with that today. But the idea is to get your chords sounding nice and smooth and even. Don't press too hard on your chord, and don't drag, don't like, that's too stiff, right? You want a nice smooth strum. Nice and even. You want to go down and up. Yep. Your downstroke is your strong stroke. It's working with you gravity-wise. Your upstroke is going to be a little weaker. That's why they call it the and. So when we play a straight 8, it's counted 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and the and. Most of the time the and on your strum will be up. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. The idea is to keep the chords sounding nice and clean, and your strum relaxed, and you hear all the strings on your chord, and not the ones that don't belong into it, because like I said, one of the first bad habits of a beginner is to hit that bass note off the C, and it starts to get washed out because the E note's so low, and it'll sound like this. You don't want that. You want to go for all the strings at a fairly equal pressure with your pick. Nice and smooth. In the end, you just want the pick to kind of bounce across the strings. You don't want short strums that miss half the strings like this. You want more. Now I'm over exaggerating it because you want to start a little slow, right? In the end, you want it to sound like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay? The idea is to relax with your pick and use it just like a brush, like if you're brushing your strings. And now I would suggest you take 1 bar of the G, C, and D each. So, you know, practice like this. That's 1 bar. Now go to the next chord. Then go to the D. Now you gotta watch the D, because if you start strumming the bass strings, your D disappears. You want equal effort, equal pressure, equal attack on each string as you strum it, even though you're just brushing it. I think a D chord is one of the harder chords to make it sound good, especially on an electric guitar. Now the D chord does use the 4th string. And sometimes you use the 5th for a bass note. But if you watch my right hand, it's really relaxed. It's how much pressure you put on the pick, too. Like I said, I kind of drag my pick across, just like if you're brushing it. So work on your straight 8 strum. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. A lot of good strums come out of that straight 8. All right, good luck. Practice your straight 8, and we'll talk to you soon. All right.